say about me. I love to sing and I love women.
Just sing a song?
Oh, yeah, but I thought you and I could do a song to get a boat.
Can't work all day with beautiful women and be doing love scenes and not have crushes. I knew how handsome he was.
Dean Martin, the suave, charming king of cool, had fans believing he was untouchable. But behind the bow ties and whiskey-soaked smiles, the crooner's final days were far darker than anyone imagined.
You know, when you hear about somebody passing away, you say that's, it's a terrible thing, but...
Secret struggles, hidden betrayals, and a shocking twist surrounding his death are finally coming to light. And Hollywood doesn't want you to know the truth.
Martin, not so friendly.
No, he wasn't. He was more standoffish. But I knew him. I met him a couple of times.
But did he just not really want to go there?
Yeah, and nobody forced him.
So what actually happened to him? Let's find out. Dean Martin wasn't just a singer or an actor. He was the embodiment of effortless cool. The man who could stroll onto a stage half smiling, drink in hand, and have an entire audience eating out of his palm. He was Hollywood's smoothest operator, charming, unbothered, always in control. But what the cameras never showed was that behind the martini glass and the lazy grin was a man carrying scars most fans never knew existed. Because Dean Martin's life wasn't just about fame and fortune, it was about survival. Behind that easy smile was a trail of broken hearts, strained friendships, and tragedies so deep that even Hollywood couldn't spin them into glamour. Dean's rise was nothing short of cinematic, but the truth behind it? Messier than any movie script. From mob ties whispered in smoky Vegas lounges to affairs that threatened to ruin his family man image, Dean's world was filled with secrets carefully buried beneath the crooner's charm.
Jerry Lewis, he was using recorded music, and Jerry was backstage messing with that. Loused him all.
Before he became Dean Martin, the beloved king of cool, he was just Dino Paul Crocetti, an Italian kid from Steubenville, Ohio, who barely spoke English and was mocked for it. Born on June 7, 1917, Dean grew up in a rough immigrant neighborhood where your fist spoke louder than your report card. His father was a barber. His mother, a strict Italian matriarch who ruled the home like a general. English wasn't even allowed at home, and when Dino did try to speak it, classmates tore him apart for his thick accent. The humiliation burned deep. He hated school, hated feeling small, and by the 10th grade, he'd had enough. He dropped out. His teachers saw failure, but Dino saw freedom. And just like that, the future Dean Martin decided the world would remember him on his own terms.
But when you mention the name Dean Martin to them, they say wine, women, and song. Is that an accurate description of your preferences?
Women and song.
Or not at all. After walking out of school, Dino didn't follow his father's dream of becoming a respectable barber. Respect didn't pay much in Steubenville anyway. What he wanted was more, and he was willing to take any path to get it. He jumped from job to job, gas station attendant, milkman, drugstore clerk, even steel mill worker. Honest work, sure, but Dino wasn't built for mediocrity. He wanted the fast life, the kind where money, women, and fame didn't just come to you, you took them. And that hunger for more led him to places most biographers politely skip over. Steubenville wasn't just another working-class town, it was mob territory. Illegal gambling, speakeasies, and shady nightclubs were the town's real economy. And young Dino? He wasn't just around it, he was in it.
Tournaments with Arnold Palmer and Nicholas, and I always played with him.
Rumor has it he ran errands for local gangsters, delivered packages that weren't exactly legal, and learned how to charm dangerous people with a smile. It's also where he picked up his first taste of showbiz, singing for small-time crooks and hustlers who paid him in tips and drinks. Dean later downplayed those years, but those who knew him back then said he learned everything he needed to know about power, danger, and charm, long before he ever stepped on a Hollywood stage.
When they were out here every summer, we had 8 tournaments.
Behind the clean suits and smooth voice was a street-smart survivor who had seen more darkness than he ever let on. Dean Martin wasn't just born cool. He earned it, the hard way. Before he was the king of cool, Dean Martin was just another broke kid fighting his way through life, literally. Under the name Kid Crocetti, Dino stepped into the boxing ring with nothing but guts, swagger, and a chipped smile that would one day charm the world. Out of 12 fights, he won exactly 1. The rest? a blur of split lips, broken noses, and humiliation. But quitting wasn't in his vocabulary.
Not so friendly.
No, he wasn't. He was more standoffish. But I knew him. I met him a couple of times.
But did he just not really want to go there?
Yeah. And nobody forced him.
Each beating left another scar on his face and his pride. He wasn't fighting for glory. He was fighting for rent. By the end of it, his hands were torn, his body bruised, and his dream of becoming a prizefighter had taken one too many punches. But in true Dean Martin fashion, he didn't cry about it. He laughed it off, tossed a smoke between his lips, and kept moving. When he hit New York, Dino teamed up with another down-on-his-luck dreamer, Sonny King. The two were broke, reckless, and desperate enough to do the unthinkable, turn their cramped apartment into an illegal fight club. The living room became a ring. The audience? Drunks and gangsters who bet cash on each swing. One night, Dean knocked out his own roommate in the first round and walked away with just enough money to keep the lights on. But even he knew he wasn't meant to bleed for a living. Still, Dino couldn't escape the underworld. When the gloves came off, he found himself working behind the tables of smoky backrooms, dealing blackjack, spinning roulette, and keeping secrets. The joints were mob-owned, the tips were good, and the cops paid to look the other way. Dean had one foot in show business and the other in the shadows.
And every once in a while, hey, Dean, you want a drink? Here's a beer. And so it was, that's the way they wanted me, and I couldn't change it.
Then fate stepped in, disguised as a microphone. Between card games and cigar smoke, Dino started to sing, at first for laughs, then for love. That warm, velvet voice cut through the haze and people noticed. One night, bandleader Ernie McKay offered him a gig. Just like that, the fighter became a frontman. He ditched Kid Cricchetti for something classier, Dino Martini, inspired by opera singer Nino Martini. By 1938, he was performing in Ohio clubs, the same places where mobsters ran the show and showgirls ran from them. The crowd loved him, women swooned. But it wasn't until bandleader Sammy Watkins gave him one simple piece of advice that everything changed. Kid, you'll never make it big with a name like Dino Martini. From now on, you're Dean Martin. That name stuck, and so did the persona.
But I think down deep, they know I'm not a lazy guy, because if there's ever a benefit, somebody calls me.
By 1943, Dean was performing full-time in New York, but the fame he wanted so badly didn't come easy. He wasn't just singing, he was inventing a myth. The cool, whiskey-in-hand ladies' man with a permanent smirk, that wasn't entirely Dean. Insiders say he modeled the act after radio and film star Phil Harris, the hard-drinking, woman-chasing entertainer who made debauchery look classy. Dean just perfected the formula.
Too crazy about wine. Wine, women, and song. I mean, what else is there to say about me? I love to sing.
On stage, he was magnetic. Off stage, he was shy, almost awkward. He drank less than people thought, partied less than he let on, and carried a quiet insecurity that never left him. In a 1967 interview with Oriana Fallaci, Dean admitted, "People think I'm stuck up, but I just don't know what to say." Decades later, that same quote would haunt fans who realized that the legendary cool guy was really just a lonely kid from Steubenville who still struggled to fit in. That contradiction, tough but tender, confident but cautious, was the secret ingredient behind Dean Martin's allure. The crowd saw charm. Dean lived the chaos. And then came August 1944, the night everything changed. Inside the Glass Hat Club at the Belmont Plaza Hotel, Dean was crooning as usual when he spotted a wiry young comic tearing up the room with manic energy. That kid was Jerry Lewis. Dean leaned over and said, "Hey, I saw your act. You're a funny kid." That offhand comment didn't just spark a friendship. It ignited a Hollywood earthquake. Together, Dean and Jerry would rise to superstardom, dominate comedy, and ultimately self-destruct in one of the most talked-about splits in showbiz history.
It's inevitable. And I spirited the breakup. I mean, I was really responsible for breaking it up.
But in that smoky New York nightclub, before the fame, before the fallout, two hungry performers had no idea they were about to change entertainment forever. Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis weren't just partners. They were a phenomenon. Together, they redefined comedy and turned nightclubs into chaos zones of laughter. But before the fame, before the money, their first show together was a total train wreck. It happened on July 24th, 1946, at the 500 Club in Atlantic City. The crowd stared in silence. No laughs, no cheers, just awkward clinking glasses. The club owner, Skinny D'Amato, a man with serious mob connections, gave them one last warning. If tomorrow night bombs too, you're finished.
Right?
You know, Pierce, a lot of people think that we had to strong arm everybody. A lot of people just wanted to be around us. You know,
Because they found it exciting.
They found it exciting. We took care of them. Maybe they can get a little advantage, you know.
So, out in a grimy back alley, the two desperate performers came up with a last-ditch plan. Jerry would play a bumbling busboy who interrupted Dean's set, dropping plates and tripping over everything in sight. Dean, in character, would snap, throw bread rolls, and yell at him mid-song. It was loud, chaotic, and nothing like the polished acts of the time. But the audience? They lost their minds. The laughter was deafening, and just like that, the Dean and Jerry formula was born, raw, unpredictable, and hilarious. The secret was simple. They weren't performing for the audience. They were performing for each other. Their onstage chemistry was electric, and offstage, they were brothers, or so it seemed.
Just sing a song?
Oh, yeah, but I thought you and I could do a song to get a boat.
Within 2 years, they were headlining the Copacabana, performing for sold-out crowds from coast to coast. In 1948, they made their national TV debut on the very first episode of The Toast of the Town, which later became The Ed Sullivan Show, performing alongside legends like Rogers and Hammerstein. But while the world laughed, something darker was brewing. Dean's cool, laid-back energy clashed with Jerry's hyperactive, attention-grabbing antics. The more fans screamed for Jerry, the more Dean quietly resented being the straight man, the one holding the setup while Jerry stole the spotlight.
An incredibly patient man and incredibly understanding.
Hollywood insiders say the tension off stage was palpable. Dean wanted respect, Jerry wanted control. To refine their act, they hired two young comedy writers, Norman Lear and Ed Simmons. Yes, that Norman Lear. The duo helped shape Dean and Jerry into Hollywood's hottest property. By 1949, the pair inked a deal with Paramount for My Friend Irma. But their agent, Abby Gressler, went further, securing them a rare deal that gave them control over their own production company, York Productions. Millions started pouring in. They were unstoppable. The fans adored them. The money was endless. And yet, behind the laughter, Dean was quietly checking out.
The subservient little kid to this big, handsome man. And we did 2 hours and 20 minutes the second show. By 2 nights later, there were hundreds of people around the block.
Jerry called Dean one of the great comic geniuses of all time. He even stood as Dean's best man when Dean married Jean Beager in 1949. But success has a way of turning brothers into rivals. By 1954, their partnership had soured. Critics complained their films were formulaic. Dean complained that Jerry was everywhere. During the filming of Three Ring Circus, Dean found himself literally erased. A Look magazine cover featured Jerry and actress Cherie North, with Dean nowhere in sight.
The relationship with Dean ends in 1956. The partnership ends in 1956.
10 years to the day.
To the day.
That was it. Dean snapped. He stormed onto the set, Look magazine in hand, and hurled it at publicity manager Jack Keller, shouting expletives. According to witnesses, Dean's fury wasn't about the photo. It was about years of being treated like a prop in Jerry's circus. Jerry later remembered Dean's cold words that day. Anytime you want to call it quits, just let me know. The fun is gone. Dean didn't care about the fame anymore. He was done being the straight man. As he told one insider, "Why the hell should I come in on time? There's not a damn thing for me to do." Hollywood had built its perfect comedy duo, but behind the spotlight was resentment, betrayal, and bruised egos. The cracks weren't just showing, they were splitting wide open.
He brought a discipline and an excellence that made what I did that much funnier.
But the funny business...
And when the end finally came, it wasn't quiet. It was explosive. By the time Three Ring Circus rolled around, the magic of Dean and Jerry's partnership had fizzled. Dean didn't even sing until 35 minutes into the film, and when he finally did, it was an old tune. It's a big, wide, wonderful world, performed to animals. The act that once felt electric now seemed painfully one-sided. Dean stayed professional, grinding through the contract until the end, but the breakup was inevitable. On July 25, 1956, exactly 10 years after their first performance together, Dean walked away quietly. but with his head held high.
The same thing with Jerry. Nobody was paying attention to me, and I knew it. I was just a straight man.
And then the Rat Pack era began. Dean didn't slow down. He threw himself into singing, acting, and Las Vegas nightlife, joining a legendary crew of entertainers: Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, and Peter Lawford. To outsiders, Dean looked like the wildest of them all, the ultimate party guy. Sinatra even joked, he's got a tan because he found a bar with a skylight. But the truth? Dean wasn't much of a late-night partier. While the rest of the pack stayed out till dawn, Dean often slipped out early, quietly doing things his way. His independence sometimes rubbed Frank Sinatra the wrong way, according to comedian Tom Drayon. But over time, Sinatra came to respect Dean's quiet, confident style. He didn't need to fit in. He did what felt right. Their friendship ran deep. Dean's daughter Diana recalled, "To watch them on stage together was brilliant. You could see the love in their eyes, the respect for each other. Their bond wasn't just a showbiz act. Their families were close, almost like brothers."
That was Frank. Frank took care of that.
Sinatra.
Yeah. He thought it was about time we stopped this nonsense.
But even the closest friendships have shadows lurking behind them. The booze, the late nights, and the glitz of the Rat Pack masked another world, a dark, dangerous undercurrent of mob ties, high-stakes deals, and secrets behind the man the world thought it knew. Dean Martin may have been the smooth, whiskey-in-hand Hollywood icon everyone adored, but his past was anything but glamorous. Before fame, he'd worked as a bootlegger and fought in bare-knuckle boxing matches. So when he started performing for mob-connected crowds with the Rat Pack, Dean wasn't intimidated like most of his peers. He had already stared down life's darker side.
Frank brought him on, sweet. He read a beautiful letter from one of his grandchildren. I loved that. And then,
while Frank Sinatra had deep ties to organized crime and most of the pack stayed polite and cautious around gangsters, Dean didn't play by their rules. After one show, a group of mobsters approached him saying, "We want to thank you for helping us out." Dean didn't flinch. He looked them dead in the eye and replied, "No, I did it for Frank," and walked away. That bold moment proved his past had made him fearless, untouchable. And let's talk about his boozy image. On stage, Dean was almost always pictured with a whiskey glass. Sammy Davis Jr. joked, "If this don't straighten my hair, nothing will." But the truth? That glass often held Martinelli's apple juice. His slurred speech, tipsy demeanor, and devil-may-care charm were all pure showbiz. Backup singer Patty Grebo confirmed it, and even Jerry Lewis backed it up. Dean once told the Saturday Evening Post, "I drink about 1/10 as much as I pretend to." Dean's charm wasn't just his voice, it was effortless control. When NBC offered him his own variety show in the mid-1960s, Dean agreed, but only on his terms. He demanded Sundays only, no rehearsals, and ownership of the show after it aired once. NBC said yes, he didn't attend rehearsals either. Instead, a stand-in ran through the full routine with dancers and guests. Sometimes, if there wasn't a football game on, Dean would casually watch from his dressing room monitor. But the moment the cameras rolled, Dean was perfectly smooth, completely relaxed, and utterly in control.
All straight men always repeat what the comedian says. You never have to learn anything.
The Dean Martin Show ran from 1965 to 1974, pulling in 40 million viewers and cementing Dean as the ultimate king of cool. Though few knew how much of that cool was calculated genius and behind-the-scenes rebellion. People loved Dean Martin because he seemed effortlessly real. "The reason this show is a hit," he once said, "is that it's me up there on that screen. It ain't nothing phony. That's really me." His cool factor was so legendary that even Elvis Presley, despite his tense relationships with other singers like Sinatra, looked up to him. In the early 1950s, Dean was one of Elvis's singing idols, and Elvis even performed Dean's hit "Everybody Loves Somebody" with Dean in the audience.
"Here, send my friend out here," and out walks Dean. And I just looked up to heaven and said, "Dear God, give me something to say."
Dean may not have been a scholar, but he had a soft spot for comic books. The only full book he ever read, Black Beauty. He famously quipped, "If you have luck, you don't have to be smart." That line fit his persona perfectly. Easygoing, charming, unbothered. Yet beneath the swagger, Dean had a love for creativity that stayed with him into adulthood. One highlight, meeting Bob Kane, the creator of Batman, and starring in his own comic series with Jerry Lewis, The Adventures of Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, which ran 40 issues between 1952 and 1957.
I was the heavy, and I wanted to break it up because I loved him too much.
But behind the charm was a heavy heart. In 1987, tragedy struck when Dean's son, Dean Paul Martin, died in a plane crash. The loss shattered him. He pulled back from work, from friends, and even drifted away from Sinatra, walking out on their tour. According to Tom Dries, this was the moment their once unbreakable bond began to fracture. Though time healed some wounds, Dean carried that grief quietly. After his death, Sinatra gave a touching tribute. Dean has been like the air I breathe, always there, always close by. He was my brother, not by blood, but by choice.
Mary's version of the real reason behind one of the biggest breakups in...
Even at the height of fame, with TV shows, record deals, and sold-out performances, Dean stayed humble. He never chased attention. The charm was natural. His Dean Martin show, which ran from 1965 to 1974, became a massive hit thanks to that effortless charisma. From 1974 to 1984, he hosted the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast, where stars, comedians, and even politicians were playfully roasted, another fan favorite. Dean Martin wasn't just Hollywood's smoothest crooner, he was a walking contradiction. The king of cool could make the world laugh on stage, melt hearts with his velvet voice, and charm anyone who crossed his path.
You send my friend out here, and out walks Dean. And I just looked up to heaven and said, "Dear God, give me something to say."
But behind that flawless tuxedo and whiskey grin was a man quietly drowning in heartbreak, secrets, and a double life that no one in showbiz dared talk about. By the end of his career, Dean had conquered every corner of entertainment, 85 films and TV shows, 12 million records sold in the US, and over 50 million worldwide. He was the face of effortless class, a Rat Pack original, and the ultimate ladies' man. But while America saw the legend, Dean was hiding a private world full of shattered loves, buried scandals, and pain that no applause could fix.
He was so sick. He was, in that wreck, and nobody paid any attention.
His story begins with his first love, Elizabeth Betty McDonald, the woman who believed in him long before the world did. They married in 1941, lived modestly in Cleveland Heights, and built a family from scratch. 4 kids in 8 years: Craig, Claudia, Gail, and Diana.
That was Frank. Frank took care of that.
Sinatra.
Yeah. He thought it was about time we stopped this nonsense.
But as Dean's fame exploded, so did the distance. Hollywood seduced him, and the family life that once grounded him began to slip away. In 1949, the marriage collapsed, and in a twist few expected, Dean won custody of all 4 kids. Betty faded into the background, retreating from the spotlight until her death in 1989.
Well, that comes first. My family is always first. I don't have fun all the time. I work.
But Dean didn't stay single long, not even for a week. Just days after the ink dried on his divorce papers, he married Jean Beager, a model and former Orange Bowl queen. Their whirlwind romance was the kind that sold magazines, glamorous, passionate, and dripping in Hollywood fantasy. They tied the knot on September 1st, 1949, with Jerry Lewis, his comedy partner turned brother-in-arms, standing as best man. Jean claimed it was love at first sight. "We locked eyes and I knew," she said. "We just fell madly in love." Together, they raised 7 children, blending Dean's 4 from his first marriage with 3 more of their own: Dean Paul Jr., Richie, and Gina. Dean joked about it endlessly, saying, "I've got 7 kids." The 3 words you hear most around my house are hello, goodbye, and I'm pregnant. On the surface, Dean and Jean had it all: the mansion, the fame, the Rat Pack glamour. But behind closed doors, cracks were forming. Hollywood insiders whispered about Dean's growing detachment, his late nights, and the quiet unhappiness Jean endured while he played the role of the charming rogue for cameras.
The only reason I work is to provide for my family
In 1969, Gene finally broke the silence, announcing their separation after 24 years of marriage. The divorce was finalized in 1972, with Dean filing the papers himself. When asked about it, he quipped, "I know it's the gentlemanly thing to let the wife file, but then everybody knows I'm no gentleman." A joke, yes, but one that masked deep emotional exhaustion. Barely a year later, the heartbreak hit replay. Dean married again, this time to Catherine "Kathy" Horn, a Beverly Hills salon receptionist. The ceremony was packed with stars, including Frank Sinatra, but Hollywood's golden guest list couldn't save the union. After just 3 years, they divorced in 1976. Dean adopted Kathy's daughter, Sasha, and treated her as his own, but it was clear the King of Cool was done playing husband. He never married again. For the last 19 years of his life, Dean stayed single, but far from alone. What came next blurred the line between romance and regret.
When I work, it's serious work. And the serious work that I do, I try to have a little fun with it. But I must work. I love the work.
After his split from Kathy, Dean quietly reconnected with Gene. They didn't remarry, but a devastating tragedy pulled them close once again. In 1987, their son, Dean Paul Martin Jr., a talented actor and Air National Guard pilot, died in a jet crash at only 35. The loss broke Dean completely. Friends say he was never the same again. He withdrew from Hollywood, stopped touring, and drowned his grief in solitude. Gene stood by his side, the way she always had, as the man who once filled stadiums now struggled to fill his own heart. They remained close until Dean's death in 1995, when lung cancer finally silenced the voice that had defined an era. He passed away on Christmas Day, a bitterly poetic ending for a man who'd given the world so much joy, but found so little of it in his final years. Gene never remarried. When she died in 2016, at 89, she was laid to rest, knowing she had once loved and lost the King of Cool.
Tell me, do you have any regrets at all when you look back at your life? Is there anything that you would have wanted to have done differently anyway at all?
I wouldn't change one thing. Not one thing.
But Dean's story didn't end with tears and tributes. Long after his death, a scandalous revelation emerged that shattered the clean-cut image fans had worshipped for decades. Enter Sandra Lansky, the daughter of infamous mob boss Meyer Lansky, who dropped a bombshell in her memoir. She claimed that during the height of his fame, Dean had a steamy, secret affair with her, while still married to Gene. And not just at any time. While Gene was pregnant with their daughter, Gina, Sandra's words were explosive. "I had never seen anything like Dean Martin's masculinity. We made love 6 times in one night that wouldn't stop. I counted." She described Dean as magnetic, tender, and dangerously confident. They even paused between rounds to drink Coke, a detail so bizarre it made the confession even more believable.
Boozer? Oh, I drink, but I'm not a boozer. I'm not an alcoholic or anything like that, but...
According to Sandra, she and Dean had an unspoken pact to keep their personal lives out of the affair. She claimed she didn't even know Gene was expecting a child at the time. Whether you believe her or not, her story peeled back the curtain on a side of Dean Martin the public never saw. The man behind the legend, driven by passion, temptation, and secrets that could have ended his career if they ever went public. To his fans, Dean Martin was the perfect blend of charm, class, and comedy. The man every guy wanted to be and every woman wanted to be with. But to those who really knew him, Dean was a complicated soul, a man haunted by grief, loneliness, and his own contradictions. As Lee Hale, musical director of The Dean Martin Show, once admitted, Dean's viewers knew him as a good husband and father, but the booze and broads jokes? That was all part of the act. Behind the smile and the smooth voice was a man hiding from his own pain, a man who made the world believe he didn't have a care, even as his own heart quietly crumbled.
In all seriousness, I feel sorry for you people that don't drink. I mean it, because when you wake up in the morning, that's as good as you're going to feel all day.
After the tragic death of his son, Dean Paul Martin Jr. in 1987, the world lost its King of Cool long before his heart stopped beating. Friends, family, even Hollywood insiders all say the same thing. Dean Martin never came back from that day. The sparkle in his eyes, the one that once lit up nightclubs and TV screens, was gone for good. Author William Keck described it bluntly in When You Step Upon a Star. He didn't just lose his son. He lost his purpose. His laughter sounded the same, but his eyes didn't match anymore.
Martin's remains have not been found yet. After the service, military jets flew overhead in a lost man formation.
Dean Jr., a decorated Air Force pilot and once a teen idol, had been the pride of Dean's life. When his plane went down in the San Bernardino mountains, Dean's world crashed with it. Friends remember him wandering his Beverly Hills home in silence for days, refusing to eat, sleep, or talk. According to Keck, Dean would tell visitors, "I'll get back on stage one day, you'll see me." But those words weren't hope, they were habits. The performer in him couldn't admit the truth. His act was over. His son's death didn't just break his heart, it broke his will to live. Even Jerry Lewis, after years of silence between them, saw it. Once he lost his son, that was the end of him, Lewis said. The performance stopped being an act. The pain took over. Lewis claimed that Dean started drinking, not as part of his routine, but for real this time. What had once been apple juice in a rocks glass became whiskey. His jokes grew slower. His smile.
Read this to you, because this is the ending of your book, Dean and Me.
Okay.
This is after Dean died.
Forced. And here's the part Hollywood rarely talks about. Dean's friends noticed something even darker. The once sharp, witty entertainer started withdrawing not just emotionally, but physically. He turned down phone calls, skipped appearances, and spent long hours alone. Frank Sinatra, who had once called Dean his brother by choice, tried to pull him back. He offered gigs, dinners, anything to keep him social. But according to comedian Tom Dreesen, Sinatra's persistence only pushed Dean further away. Frank wanted to fix him, Dreesen said, but Dean didn't want fixing. He wanted quiet.
I were always there, or Sammy Davis. We're there. Well, I'm not lazy. They want to think I'm lazy, but they know I work.
Some insiders claim Sinatra blamed himself. He reportedly told friends that the strain of their touring schedule and lifestyle had worsened Dean's grief. By 1989, their friendship, once unbreakable, was all but over. Dean quit their reunion tour halfway through, walking off without a word. Sinatra was furious, but privately he wept. Hollywood gossip columns hinted that Dean was battling depression, even dementia. Some said he'd become paranoid, believing people only wanted him around for nostalgia. Others claimed he'd grown bitter toward the entertainment industry that once adored him but now ignored him. By the early 1990s, Dean's health was fading fast. Decades of chain smoking, up to 3 packs a day, caught up to him. Doctors diagnosed lung cancer, but he refused surgery. He didn't want pity, tubes, or hospital beds. "If it's my time," he reportedly said, "it's my time."
No.
Oh, I didn't think so.
I drink like you drink, and I don't know how much you drink.
Oh.
I couldn't have stayed in this business.
He retreated into isolation at his Beverly Hills mansion. The man who once filled rooms with laughter now sat alone, chain-smoking in silence, watching old westerns and home movies of his son. And then came the eerie twist that shook fans to the core. On Christmas Day, 1995, Dean Martin, the man who made the world laugh, died quietly in his sleep from acute respiratory failure. A man who once owned every stage died alone on the holiest, happiest day of the year. Some say it was coincidence. Others say it was fate, that Dean chose that day so he could finally be with his son again.
When he passed away on Christmas,
yeah.
that was one of the things that I got. That's what I wanted. So every now and then I take off the top and I'm right back.
Las Vegas, the city that once pulsed to his voice, went dark for 1 minute that night. The neon lights on the strip dimmed in his honor, a rare tribute usually reserved for presidents and legends. Dean was laid to rest at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery beside his parents and his son. His crypt bears a single haunting inscription: "Everybody loves somebody sometime." At his private funeral, Hollywood royalty gathered in silence. Sinatra, Lewis, Don Rickles, Bob Newhart, Angie Dickinson, and more. But it was one moment that broke even the toughest hearts. As the crowd sat in silence, the lights dimmed. Then Rosemary Clooney, Dean's dear friend and George Clooney's aunt, stood up and began to sing "Everybody Loves Somebody." Her voice cracked halfway through. Some say Sinatra had to turn away. William Keck later recalled, "It wasn't a showbiz goodbye. It was raw, human. You could feel the grief vibrating in the air. And yet, the controversies didn't stop even after death. Insiders whispered that Dean's estate was in disarray, that family tensions flared over inheritance. Others claimed Jerry Lewis felt guilty for waiting too long to reconcile. There were even rumors that Sinatra, racked with guilt, visited Dean's grave in secret.
My partner and best friend, the man who made me the man I am today. I think of him with undying respect. That's quite something to say about a guy who you didn't really see much after 1956.
Did Dean Martin ever find peace in those final years? Or was he haunted to the very end by the ghosts of laughter, fame, and fatherhood? Behind the grin, the whiskey glass, and the perfect cool, Dean Martin's story ended not in music or applause, but in quiet heartbreak. The world remembers him as the man who made life look easy. But in truth, his greatest performance was hiding the pain that never left him. Dean Martin's legacy may live on in song, but the truth about his secret life still lingers like cigarette smoke in an empty Vegas lounge. Impossible to ignore and impossible to forget. That's it for today. See you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.